If you found $100 on the street, would you pick it up or keep walking? Of course you take the money. So why do you keep picking winners and not betting on them? That's why I go to MyBookie. It's fast, it's easy, and they pay you when you win. Let's face it, guys, where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on. So do the smart thing this football season. If you're going to bet with MyBookie. Did you know you could bet on games after kickoff? If by the second half it looks like you're going to lose your bet, you can always just take the other side at MyBookie. Join now and MyBookie will double your first deposit. Use promo code Detroit100 to activate the offer. That's promo code DETROIT100. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid.
Fellas, I want to tell you about a product that can improve your performance in the bedroom. And what better way to improve the quality of your life than to please the woman of your dreams? Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. Blue Chew is the fast and easy solution for any man looking to enhance their performance and step up their game. You don't have to be one of those guys that finishes quickly, or you don't have to be one of those guys that, at the end of the day, regrets not having a great sex life. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package, so no in-person doctor's visit, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment free when you use our special promo code DETROIT. All you got to do is pay the $5 shipping and handling fee. Again, that's BlueChew.com. Promo code Detroit to try it free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. Full-time artist.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of Two Bad Hombres. Welcome to the weekend. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my co-host, the best guy on the network, a guy that does it all, Vito Churko. What's up, my friend?
John, I really appreciate that intro. For the first time ever, you've come out and admitted it, that I am the best person on the DSP network, and that is so darn true. Thank you very much.
What's happening?
I'm doing well this morning, looking at some news and notes and some stories, and I see one that really sticks out to me that I had told you about earlier this week, and it's regarding Michigan becoming the first U.S. state to ban flavored e-cigarettes. And on Wednesday, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced the retail sale ban of sweet, fruity, minty, and menthol-flavored vaping products in the state. And she commented, "My number one priority is keeping our kids safe." Your thoughts on Michigan becoming the first ever state in the U.S. to ban flavored e-cigs?
I'm all for it because of the fact I think people have become aware of some of the dangers as these products have been released. Obviously, early on, there wasn't a lot of buzz around it, but then people started using it, and now a lot of youngsters are involved in it. And then I think you've seen it too, where you're seeing YouTube videos, you're seeing news reports of lung issues. Obviously, some of these products cause some issues. And so when you look at products and you look at, public safety, it's very important when we talk about kids that on some level there are certain things you don't have access to. And that's why you can't drink alcohol legally until you're 21. That's why you can't purchase cigarettes until you're 18. And so for these products to be banned, I have no problem with it. And so that's why I was talking to a couple clients too. I was like, what is this about? Which ones are they? Because right now, Vito, in the world of vaping and e-cigarettes, there's so many different products that it makes it really hard to decide and look at what is it that they actually banned. So I understand in the past, I have actually smoked e-cigarettes before, maybe 5-6 years ago. Didn't inhale, but the strawberry flavored one with it looked like a little pen. You push a little button, you inhale a little bit, and you blow out some strawberry smoke. And that comes from my experience smoking hookah. So I was not, and I'm not a big smoker. So for me, when I hear this, I'm like, okay, I really, to be honest with you, to be quite frank, I don't know much about it. I don't do it. The only form of nicotine that I'm involved in is hookah. So, and I know that there's debate there because the kids really, really are into that. But I'm glad because in the name of public safety, these type of things have to take place. What's been your reaction, and how have you experienced this? I know you're not a big smoker either.
Well, it's funny. You said you did not inhale. Are you like President Bill Clinton?
Did not inhale, Vito.
You said that. I heard you say you did not inhale when it came to smoking these e-cigarettes in the past. And it relates to the dangers of vaping. It specifically does, and it's become so huge among millennials, young people of all ages and all walks of life. But as Governor Gretchen Whitmer has said, this vaping among young people constitutes a public health emergency. Her exact words there. And I really believe she's onto something. And then the thing is, these companies are using these, fun flavors to get kids hooked on nicotine. And that's not a good thing, especially at a young age. And realistically, John, you and I don't want to get hooked on nicotine either. And the thing is, then you are addicted. You can't stop smoking these e-cigs. You can't stop vaping. And it's not a good thing to get started at any age, and because it's of an addictive nature. So young kids that are smoking this now and vaping, it's not a good thing for them to get started at a young age. And it leads to a bad, dangerous issue for them moving forward in their lives, and potentially a deadly issue as well. So don't get started at any age, and honestly, do other stuff for fun. There's other stuff out there that I think can be deemed cool. But the thing is, the reason why so many kids, young people, John, as you know, are doing this is because right now it's deemed to be cool. It's, all the cool kids supposedly are doing it. And I think some kids are just getting wrapped up in this and getting hooked up in the wrong crowds, hanging out with the wrong crowds of people in their respective schools. And because of that, they're around all of this vaping, and they are doing it themselves. And I think more states now have to come out and make these or take these bold initiatives. I think other states should come out and ban these flavored e-cigarettes, because once again, it just sets these kids off on the wrong path. And really, you could argue, John, onto a deadly path as well.
So, Vito, when you were a kid, were there pressures to smoke? I mean, you went to all boys Catholic school, and you hear rumors there. Were you ever peer pressured? Did Nick ever go, "Hey, Vito, let's hang out in the garage, let's smoke a cigarette"? No one will ever catch you.
We were active. We were too worried being athletes. We're such stellar athletes, John, that we didn't have time for smoking or drinking. And I think he actually tried out some alcohol before college, and a lot of kids have done that and will continue to do that. And that's honestly almost better, and you can recommend that over, smoking these flavored e-cigs. And not that I'm going to start advocating for kids starting to drink alcohol in high school, but it's almost better and safer if you do it in moderation. And a lot of this, what it comes down to, John, as you know, is doing it in moderation.
Yes.
And I'll tell you the truth, though. I've never done a drug in my life. I've drank alcohol, will continue to consume alcohol, but I tend to consume it in moderation. And maybe there are those nights where, yes, I drink a little bit too much and I get buzzed, and even more than buzzed, and yeah, I'm drunk. But realistically, on a regular basis, I'm not drinking a ton of alcohol when I go out and drink the alcohol. And that's what I deem as my one vice in life.
So did you partake before you were 21 with Nick? Did he peer pressure you? Was he your bad influence? Your bad influence?
Well, forget about, what? He's a bad hombre. But forget about him. I was around other people in college as well, other influences, going to frat parties. So it didn't take Nick to put me down this route of drinking alcohol, and before I was 21. So yes, I did it at a frat party or two at Detroit Mercy before I turned 21. And you know what? It's made me a better, stronger person now. I mean, look at the success I've garnered since, John. It's because of drinking that alcohol before I turned 21.
What a message, the rep from De La Salle.
What a message to kids.
what a message, Vito. Oh, that's good stuff. See, and that's what it is too, is that when you're young, you make mistakes, you fall, you succumb to peer pressure, and you want to fit in. But yeah, in the matter of smoking, I obviously take it very seriously. I do not believe in smoking. I just detest it. And I'm actually, so much happy. And for me, I'm so thrilled that the country has taken this approach where you can go to restaurants, you can go to a lot of places, and it's smoke-free. And I know a lot of smokers are so, they feel like they've been made to feel inconvenienced. But at the same time, look, the cigarette smoke is toxic, it smells, and, to be honest, I'll share this story. If you ever try to kiss someone that's a smoker, it's so disgusting. So when I met my wife, she was a smoker. And a pretty heavy smoker. And she was somebody that partaked, and she would go out with her friends, and she would drink and smoke and all those things. And obviously, I'm a business owner, and so I've never had an employee go outside and take 5 minutes to smoke. That's ridiculous. That would be like my worst pet peeve. I'm like, these people that are on the clock are going out and smoking for 10 minutes? Hell no. So she would go out with the crew and go out and smoke. And so we started hanging out, and I said, look, I'm not controlling. I'm a fair guy. I'm laid back and don't get riled up too much about a lot of things. But absolutely, positively, we will never go out if you smoke. And she looked at me, and she's like, seriously? I said, yeah. I said, if you want to go out with me, I will never change you. You can be Andrea. Do whatever you want. Obviously, I'll weigh in and be sarcastic or give my approval or disapproval. But I said, if you smoke, we're not dating. And so she quit cold turkey. Now, the best story regarding that is, so she quits cold turkey, but it's hard because she had a strong habit. That's how addicting it is. So I was either doing something or hanging out with a buddy or maybe shooting hoops or going to a movie guy night or doing something, right? And she had one of these parties where you invite the ladies over and you sell jewelry, a jewelry party at her house with her coworkers. And, she broke down and she smoked like maybe... At that night, she smoked maybe like 7-8 cigarettes. She got she fell off the wagon per se, and she smoked. Okay, so she smoked, and she told me, and she was really nervous to tell me, but the reason why she told me was she got sick, like almost violently sick, because it'd been like maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and she fell off the wagon, and she smoked, but she got real nauseous and real sick, and since then, cold turkey, Vito. She stopped smoking. Now, from time to time with me, we'll smoke hookah. No doubt about it. It's a Middle Eastern thing. It's relaxing. It's fun. And we don't do it every day, maybe once a month. But that was the only thing I ever told her. And that was going to, and really at the end of the day, that was going to be my only caveat in terms of dating was I'm not marrying a smoker because it's personal to me. I'm not going to share, certain things, but smoking is personal to me. I've seen too many people pass away from lung cancer. It's dangerous. And everybody, by and large, if whether you believe or not believe that it's dangerous, those that quit that smoke feel better. And by and large, 99% of people that stop smoking feel like, oh, I got my taste buds back. My sense of smell has returned. I feel so much better. So this network is anti-smoking, no doubt about it. And I just can't speak enough on how much I detest it. And I'm glad that, and actually, the best part about it is now, I used to buy my dad cigarettes at like 99 cents at the gas station in the, 90s. He just send me in there and be like, hey, I know this guy, just tell him, and buy cigarettes for $1. Now, a pack of cigarettes is like $8, $9, and it's taxed. And I'm all aboard. Hey, if you want money for roads, tax the smokers. If you want money for this, tax the smokers, tax the vices. And so that's where I'm about it. I'm so happy that this has been banned because, I don't know. There's so much about it that I really don't know in terms of health and things like that. But I'll say this, in terms of kids and getting hooked on smoking, if we can delay it, if we can regulate it just a little bit, I'm all for it.
Tax the cigarettes, but don't tax the alcohol. Please don't do that to me. But anyways, on a serious note, Andrea gave it up cold turkey, smoking that is because she wanted you so bad. You were that delicious and satisfying to her, and she couldn't give you up, so she had to give up smoking cigarettes. Think about that. You were that desired at one point in your life, and now nobody desires you, John. So at least you did at one point before you guys got married, and I give you that much credit. But even more on a serious note now, I read in this article regarding Michigan becoming the first state to ban these flavored e-cigs, that the ban comes after nearly 100 possible cases of severe lung illnesses tied to vaping and reported in 14 states from late June to mid-August. And that is according to the Centers for Disease Control and prevention. And in Michigan, even, the Department of Health and Human Services was reviewing 6 cases involving respiratory illnesses associated with e-cigarettes and vaping. So e-cigarettes, vaping, it's still like smoking cigarettes. It has nicotine in it, so it's highly addictive. And guess what? Because of that, it's of dangerous nature, and you should never start it.
Now, Vito, show love to one of our sponsors. In the second half of the podcast, we're going to get into some sports. I want to get Vito's sense of his early reaction regarding Michigan. They played their first game. Obviously, Vito's connected very well to the program. I want to get his sense of what his reaction was in game 1. And then to end the podcast, we got to talk about it. The biggest story in the National Football League, Antonio Brown has issues, and he was so upset regarding how management of the Raiders treated him that he went off and approached management in a complete disrespectful manner, and we have to weigh in the second half of the podcast. But the reason why we're able to broadcast is because we got great sponsors. Vito, tell us about DC Sports at Lakeside Mall.
Antonio Brown, with the Raiders has issues, DC Sports at Lakeside Mall surely does not. And it is your authentic sports memorabilia stores in Metro Detroit and beyond. Also, your premier and go-to destination for all things when it comes to autograph signing sessions, and terrific autograph signing sessions, such as one that just featured the quarterback of the Detroit Lions in Matthew Stafford. Please follow DC Sports on Twitter at DC Sports Detroit, and make sure to check out their terrific website today and every single day of the week at DetroitCitySports.com.
Detroit City Sports over there at Lakeside Mall have treated us very well, Steve and the crew. Great memorabilia. I love going in there from time to time and seeing what's been happening, who's signed, and things like that. The jerseys, the memorabilia, the frame stuff. Even from time to time, now that these arenas are coming down, you can see, live right there in person in the building. You can see seats, maybe from Joe Louis Arena and things like that. So I love going to memorabilia shops, and DC Sports over there at Lakeside Mall, one of the best. All right, Vito, game 1 happened. Lots to talk about. Michigan did, in fact, defeat Middle Tennessee State, but it started off a little bit bumpy. I think you and I probably have the same concerns. That defense gave up a bunch of chunk plays to a team that really wasn't that good.
Yeah, and you know what? I was more impressed with the Michigan offense and Shea Patterson and Dylan McCaffrey, the 2 quarterbacks being used throughout the entirety of the game, and McCaffrey utilizing his legs and showcasing his dual mobility or, dual threat ability. So I love seeing that out of McCaffrey. And, Shea Patterson ends up struggling at any point during the season, John. You know that there will be a quarterback controversy brewing, even more than maybe one already has. And I don't think really it started yet. But I think one will definitely start brewing if and when Shea Patterson starts struggling against the big boys on the schedule. And you don't have an extremely tough contest this week either in Army. Some of these military schools, though, in terms of the offenses that they run and their style of play, it does give some of these big boys, such as Michigan, trouble at times. But Michigan should handle its business relatively easily this Saturday as well. And then moving forward, it just gets harder. And you have a tough road contest at Wisconsin, and you want to see the offense bring its A game. And its defense, John, back to that, bring its A game much more than it did, especially to start the contest against Middle Tennessee State last week in game 1 under the lights at the Big House. And one thing that was really positive for me, Ambry Thomas has suffered colitis. He is dealing with that, which is tough to deal with on a daily basis. He had a big play, had an interception. He looked really good out there last Saturday. Lavert Hill in the secondary did as well at times. But they're going to need overall-wise their defense to be better. And one thing that really was a red flag that needs to be better as well is their offensive line. You saw at times that Middle Tennessee State was handling the Michigan O-line with ease, was getting to the quarterback, getting to Shea Patterson. Patterson needed more time at times and didn't get it. They get the luxury of that because of porous O-line play, which as fans and pundits alike, John, we thought was improved for Michigan coming into the season after last year was much more improved and guys had better seasons such as John Runyon and others. So you thought the Michigan O-line was ready to take a huge step forward this season. And then you look as poor as you did at times against Middle Tennessee State. That didn't look good for Michigan offensively. And once again, you're right, John. At times, the Michigan defense wasn't sharp and extremely effective either. So they have some stuff on both sides of the ball to improve as time goes on here this season.
So should there be a quarterback controversy among Michigan Nation? Are you guys thinking that Dylan McCaffrey is actually better than Shea Patterson? Because based on how he was used, it looked like it was just more in terms of trying to get him out there for experience, some gimmick plays that really didn't work. I know that Michigan fan likes the more prototypical tall quarterback with the big arm, but Shea Patterson does bring some things. I do understand, though, that Shea has some limitations that may bring up concerns for a lot of Michigan fans. What is the reason that Michigan fans are turning their attention to Dylan McCaffrey as opposed to Shea Patterson? Is it because of the fact that versus the big boys, when you had a chance to evaluate Shea, that he just didn't deliver and you don't think he will? Or is it something I'm missing in that Dylan McCaffrey is actually more talented than Shea Patterson?
Well, Shea was nice last year, but in the big moments against the big boys, just not as nice and not as sharp and effective. So he needs to be more of that this season against the big boys, such as Wisconsin in that first tough road contest. And then against Michigan State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and the likes of those squads. So you want to see more effectiveness and high-quality play out of Shea against those big boys. Dylan, at times last year, including against Notre Dame and a drive or two, looked more effective than Shea did in almost the entirety of that ball game in week 1 last season under the lights at ND in South Bend. So I think the quarterback so-called controversy, which isn't of high magnitude yet, I think it stems from that week 1 performance last season when Shea was the new starter for the Michigan Wolverines. And there was a little bit of controversy that Dylan McCaffrey could come in and do the same and do even better. And he showcased that a little bit, but in an extremely small sample size last season. And I think now there could be a potential quarterback controversy that brews. Hasn't yet, to answer your question, but could potentially brew. Because it's not Dylan McCaffrey. He's a bigger dude who can move. He's like 6'4", 6'5", has some size, and actually can move around in the pocket, gain yards via his legs. And he's willing to take some hits. And he's not like the most bulky dude that maybe can absorb a ton of hits per game, but God, he can get around. And he was willing to throw his body out there. And it's a dangerous situation to gain further yards in the Michigan Wolverines offensive attack subsequently a week ago against Middle Tennessee State. So I think because of that, people know he has a strong enough arm. I think there is the potential of a quarterback controversy potentially brewing. But I do still like Shea more because of his quality season a year ago. And people thought he'd be a Heisman caliber quarterback last season. He wasn't close to that, close to a Kyler Murray under center, but showed some signs here and there, can throw the big yardage pass on the run. And because of that, I like him, and he does have some sexy qualities as a quarterback, and some sexy qualities that are worth speaking about, and that put him above Dylan McCaffrey on the QB depth chart, thus far at least, for Michigan. But with time, could things change? Once again, could a quarterback controversy truly emerge? I really, really believe so.
And so for you, Vito, what are your expectations? I know we haven't had a chance to talk about Michigan, but there'll be some news in regards to you podcasting and discussing Michigan on a more regular basis, and we'll talk about that in the coming weeks. Stay tuned to the Detroit Sports Podcast for some great news and more additional content that we can provide here on the network. But in terms of your expectations for the season, I mean, do you think, because of the fact that a lot of the contests are at home, but if you look at that schedule, they play, I believe, 7 top 25 ranked teams. A lot of them take place at the Big House in Ann Arbor, but like you had previously stated, they do go to Wisconsin. They do got to play Ohio State, who looked solid offensively. They look like that machine on offense can continue to roll. Michigan State's defense looks like they're legit. What are your serious expectations? And, if they do fail to meet up to them, is it time to start talking about Jim Harbaugh and what he actually can accomplish at Michigan?
I'll say these two things really quick, though. I think having an offensive coordinator like Josh Gaddis coming in and actually calling the plays instead of Harbaugh, I think has already showcased some ability to make a difference with the Michigan Wolverines. And having a true freshman running back that is a stud in Zach Charbonnet, who looked really good at times last week against Middle Tennessee State. I think a more capable number one and bell cow back than a guy such as Karan Higdon. last season. And no offense to Hagan, I liked what he did. He was a quality running back and gained a lot of yards for himself in his career at Michigan. But I think Charbonnet brings a little bit more of explosiveness and at least that Mike Hart ability to be a difference maker when it comes to the ground game. Now, to sum it all up, what I expect from Michigan as a whole this season, I would say another 10-win campaign. But the thing is, they won 10 games last year and totally blew it and fell on their faces when they played Ohio State and suffered that 62-39 defeat. And guys, even though that game was played on the road, remember, Michigan had a vaunted number 1 D coming into that contest and then suffered that big of a defeat, allowing 62 points against your arch rivals from Columbus, Ohio. How disappointing and embarrassing was that contest? It couldn't happen again. I'm going to say that you're not going to suffer a defeat of that magnitude once again. It's almost impossible to lose that bad 2 straight seasons. And when you have as much talent as Michigan does as well. But the problem is, do I see a defeat happening again for Michigan? Yes, I do. Even at home, the game being played at home this season against the new head man leading the Ohio State Buckeyes in Ryan Day, who, remember, coached the first, 3 games last season as the interim head man of the Buckeyes. And he looked fantastic in doing so. He's known as this innovative offensive mind. Ohio State still has a ton of offensive talent and playmakers on both sides of the ball. So that matchup at the end of the season, John, still scares me a ton as a Michigan fan. And I think still Michigan suffers a defeat against the Buckeyes. And Harbaugh, because of that, falls to 0-5 all-time head-to-head with the Buckeyes. How bad is that? And Michigan, realistically, because of that, too, I see, as I already said, John, winning 10 games this year, but no more than that.
Oh, Vito, that would probably be very upsetting to Michigan fans if they continue to have success but not beat Ohio State. I think that's probably the only pathway that the rumblings to let go of Jim Harbaugh continue is that, look, you got to give him credit. He has turned it around. Michigan is more respectable, but at the end of the day, that's not the expectation. You don't bring in Jim Harbaugh, pay him all that money to just win 10 games and not defeat Ohio State, never get to Indy, never win any hardware. Look, it's sports, and it doesn't have to be fair, but at the end of the day, you have expectations, and it's different if you come into a program that's done nothing. If you're Les Miles and you're going to a really small school and you're trying to repair it, that's different than when you're Michigan and you have this expectation, you have this ability to bring in the best recruits, you have what you think is your guy, the guy that's supposed to be on par with Nick Saban, on par with the likes of Urban Meyer. And so national championships should always be the expectation. And while I don't agree with a lot of things that Paul Feinbaum says, I do think that because of the fact that fans are realistic, they don't believe, by and large, that Michigan can actually do it. Because of the fact that, Ohio State has been so dominant, the belief in Michigan fans maybe is elevated this year because a lot of the games are at home. But at the same time, I think the more realistic fans are the ones that say, yeah, we can defeat anybody. We can defeat Michigan State. We can defeat Wisconsin. But as long as we do not compete well versus Ohio State, you got to remember the last game versus Ohio State was not just a close loss. It was a destruction. And so the man that was leading that offense that scored a bunch of points is the head coach of Ohio State. So it's going to be a tough task, and that's why I bring up the defense because obviously those things, once they get on film, can be exploited. So Don Brown's got work to do, and but I do think that the Michigan football program has a chance for success, and that's all you can give it. Give yourself is a realistic chance. Now, final topic, want to get your sense, Vito. Antonio Brown, does this marriage with the Oakland Raiders, does it break apart, or if emotions subside, then potentially they can reconvene and get back to business? Now, for those that don't know, Antonio Brown, really, once he was traded, obviously the Steeler fans are happy because they got a great haul from the Raiders, including several picks and things like that. So he goes over there, and already there's an issue because he goes over to France and he, negatively affects his feet by getting into this cryo tank, and obviously going into camp, he's injured. But he's not that much of a distraction until the NFL starts getting involved with his helmet. And now he's all upset. He's, the diva status has been activated. And then the Oakland Raiders start to get involved, and, he's missing practice, he's acting out. And then, I think what set him off, and it's true now based on what he's tweeted, he's not happy that his general manager gets in front of the cameras and tells everybody, look, Antonio's got to be all in or all out. So at that point, he feels disrespected, and I get it, because that kind of thing, I think general manager Mayock probably regrets doing that in front of the camera. He should have just been like, when he was asked about Antonio Brown, look, Antonio's a great player. We'll definitely have a talk, and we can't wait to get him back and functioning. Instead, he goes in front of the camera and is like, either, he puts his foot down. He's like, Antonio needs to be all in or all out. And I think Antonio feels disrespected. And then Antonio makes a big mistake in that he reveals some of the suspension papers or the papers that the organization gave him. So in essence, now what you have is you have management and Mike Mayock saying, hey, we can't let an employee act like that. And they had a confrontation. They had a physical confrontation in which players had to basically get in between the two fellas, and that's not good. Already it's reported AB is not going to be playing in Game 1. Serious talks of maybe him not even being on the roster. Maybe the Raiders will take efforts to void the contract. Bad times for the Oakland Raiders.
Antonio Brown is one bad hombre, isn't he? And now going to be suspended. And people actually loved this trade from the Oakland Raiders. They really did when it was made. It was for a 3rd and 5th round draft pick. Think about it. For a man of that talent, a high-level ability to break open plays and score touchdowns in Antonio Brown with the great career he had with the Pittsburgh Steelers. People love that trade from the Raiders' perspective. And now, everything is hitting them smack dab in the face. Everything that could have gone wrong regarding having Antonio Brown on their roster has gone wrong. I remember it started with this helmet incident and AB wanting to wear his helmet that he's worn for all this time now in his NFL career. And Zenith actually, did you see this? Who I know the president over there, which is Ryan Sullivan, a Detroit-based company, Zenith stepped in and gave AB a new helmet. A helmet that he truly loved when he received it. And that settled all of that helmet saga and controversy there. But because he, as you said, Johnny, took to Twitter or just on social media released these circumstances of why the Raiders were going to fine him. Because of that, and since then, the Raiders and Mike Mayock, the GM of the Oakland Raiders, they have gone an opposite direction. They no longer are on the same page. There was that dispute that happened, I believe on Wednesday of this week, and it led to AB being suspended. And guess what? He has $30 million in guaranteed money as part of this contract. Because once he was traded to the Raiders also inked him to a new deal. They guaranteed him $30 million. He was making little to nothing in terms of guaranteed money prior. Now, with all this money that the Raiders owe him in the long term, they want to get out from under this contract already, John. That's how bad, how much this relationship has already gone awry and has gone by the wayside. So now the Raiders organization has to deal with a huge issue on their hands. And you know what? Maybe it just proves to you and to I and to all of us here at the DSP Network, John, that you can't have a TV personality go into the front office and start making decisions for the organization. And this is a man in Mike Mayock that was the NFL draft expert for NFL Network for so many years. He was their Mel Kiper Jr., their Todd McShay, and he was so good on TV, so articulate, and so smart, and had a great ability to properly evaluate NFL draft prospects. But now in this role, as the guy calling the shots along with head coach John Gruden, who's also the team president, got a 10-year deal, by the way, to take over both duties with the Oakland Raiders. Well, Mike Mayock, I think, is proving to us that even though he might be smart on TV and knows something about the game of football, it doesn't always translate to the front office and to helping run a team and make the decisions for an NFL organization. And I think something that really maybe cost him too was him going on TV. What he did, like you said, he knew where the cameras were. It got spread on social media when he started talking about AB and the helmet issue a couple of weeks back. And he kind of told AB directly through that platform that he wanted him just to get back into play football and that's what he was worried about. So I think the TV side of Mike Mayock has already started to backfire for him. And I think you have a case where if he continues to think he's still on TV, he's not going to last with the Oakland Raiders. And AV, and it looks like already sad but true, he's not going to last past this season with the Oakland Raiders, John.
Should the Raiders do this? Should the Raiders end the relationship, or is it worth it for them to try and reconcile? What should happen?
I think he has so much talent. I'll just leave it with this. I think they should try to reconcile the relationship because, he is a hugely talented wideout. They can make such a difference with the Raiders passing game that you have to give it a shot to allow the relationship to be reconciled.
Great edition of the podcast, Vito. Always enjoy having great conversations. Hope everyone enjoys the weekend of college football. The Lions kick off on Sunday. Can't wait to recap a lot of this stuff with you next week. You can follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for downloading the latest edition of the podcast. You can find all the shows available via the Detroit Sports Podcast platform. Anywhere your favorite podcast is available, we're there. All you got to type in is, in the search bar, 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast. You'll find us. Thanks, Vito.
John, adios.